Welcome to Second Wind, the show where we explore how the most creative minds in the world keep moving forward, especially when the winds shift. I'm Gully Flowers, live from Cannes Lion 2025. Today's guest is a curious, culture-shaping creative leader who's built worlds for some of the most iconic brands out there, Tiffany, LVMH, Burberry. She believes in excellence over perfection and that a great idea means nothing without exceptional craft. She's a reformed minimalist turned selective maximalist, a former diehard New Yorker turned NorCal convert, and someone who leads with heart, instinct, and a deep love for design, music, laughter, and human connection. She helped bring Nowness to life, a platform that didn't just tell stories, but redefined how we experience them. And today, as head of global creative at Benefit Cosmetics, she's leading a cross-functional team on a mission to transform the Beneverse. Welcome to Second Wind, Diana.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I think this path of design, right? Sort of initial design focus, then creative at a big famous agency, and now going in-house on the brand side. I think that's something we're seeing as a pretty common path for creative leaders. I'd just love to hear how that experience was for you moving through those different roles, because at one point it would have been considered an unusual path, right?
Well, yeah, and then you have to have leaders who can see your potential, because that's what you have to ask for, right? I studied art history and fine arts, nothing, and then I studied design right before I left. Realized initially I wanted to become a curator for MoMA, but that felt like it might be I wanted to create something. And so when I then went into design, I think I've always been really ambitious and knew that I wanted to keep doing more and more and more. I mean, designer, great. Set your sights on something else. Art director, great. Creative director, great. And, I think the agency experience was incredible. And I think having basically now spent half of my career agency side and half of my career brand side, it was kind of the right thing to do, because the agency side gives you so much experience in how to sell an idea. You have no idea, junior designers that currently, if you're in a brand side world, they don't have those skills that a lot of agency folks have. You've got you have amazing creative planners and strategists who know how to write a brief. I mean, if you've been brand side,
careful. This is
you might want to strike that from the thing. No.
I mean, it's just for me, I learned the craft at DDB Sydney, right? And they took the brief really seriously. And the brief,
and most agencies do.
Yeah. Do they still? I
don't know. I haven't been agency side for probably, I don't know, now 10 years. So I've been brand side for 10 years, and I spent probably 10 years or a little bit longer agency side. And I mean, I think agencies truly value how much the brief then informs what happens on the creative execution side, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, because you're an agency, you have clients who evaluate you, make sure that the work is effective and all those things, it meets the brief. I think that on the brand side, there are amazing marketers that are really great at specific things, but I think that what I've seen consistently is that creative brief writing, strategy planning from a creative perspective is somewhere where there's more development opportunities. I mean, we had at Benefit, we have great marketers, but we've had people to come in to really train. It's one thing to write sort of here's something what we need, it's more of an execution brief versus a creative brief to really ideate something that I think I've learned the value of that from being agency side, because planners and strategists who write excellent briefs, you'll get excellent work. And I think that there's a craft to it that I don't think that a lot of brands realize is maybe missing.
Absolutely. Peter Georgi at Rocket said it quite well. He said, the brief should pick a fight. Right?
Totally.
It's
I love
the
that.
brief, the insight should pick a fight. Right?
There has to be there needs to be tension, right? For sure. So I just don't, I think a lot of times if you have a junior marketer who's on the brand side, they might think that they just need to write the perfect brief so that the creatives need everything, every single thing that's dotted, T'd, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need to have some gaps and holes in it so that we can start to imagine, know? So
it's probably a symptom of a changed media environment, right? The traditional briefing process was set up for an AOR model where you had a long time to do strategy and
True.
generate really interesting insights, and then have the creative team take that and come up with concepts, and everything was very luxurious. Whereas now it's like, okay, we need 75 posts this week, you know, whatever it is. I mean, I think Google Chrome is planning 1.5 million assets for the year.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably more a factor of like just a shift in the media environment.
Yeah.
But it's hard to keep up.
I think what's interesting is that it's much more probably fluid, right? It's
Yeah.
that whole like building a plane while flying it too model is like the norm now. It used to be kind of like sometimes, oh shit, we're doing this now, but it seems more commonplace because media has changed so much. And I think that the way that consumers, Gen Zers, Gen Alpha, the way they consume content, the way they interact with brands have completely transformed. I mean, it's really, TikTok is, you know, obviously a search engine. It's your shop. I mean, I buy so many things on TikTok. I'm not Gen Zer, but still, it's become part of my world that, you know, ChatGPT, TikTok, those things have really disrupted how we discover brands, discover work, discover information. So I think that for an agency and brands, it's really changed how you work. So you constantly have to evaluate what's going on, what you're doing.
I think I had I bought something on TikTok last year, and I had this moment of realization that the whole, you know, like customer decision journey, there's a lot of acronyms for it, but like, you know, all the different stages of purchase.
Yeah.
Right. Which used to be really linear. I think all we thought about it in a linear way, right?
Yeah.
It's been compressed to like 17 seconds.
Yeah.
Right. On TikTok, I've gone from not knowing this product existed to hitting buy without entering any information.
Yeah.
It's just like I learn about what problem this solves for me. It's compelling. And then I buy it. And obviously they can, you know, look at what's performing. And it's just incredible to think about like how radically different that is. And we talked about the brief and process, and it's like, how do you think about generating like disruptive ideas in that environment where, you know, TikTok has it down to a science of 17 seconds?
I mean, it's layered, right? I think that being brand side, we have a lot of information from all. So, you know, I'm on the global team. So, you know, there's the central global team. Then there's the markets, the countries that activate everything. So they really, you know, they are the ones that execute on the global brands, strategies and creative and all that stuff. And so, you know, we get a lot of information from them because it's really important also that's the good thing about, I think, this sort of like crazy world right now is that I think media is so helpful in for brands to understand the nuances of what's happening in each of the markets with their audiences, because it is nuanced. So that information is really helpful for us to activate on. You have to be super agile. I mean, you really have to debate whether or not you've got the right team members. Are they focusing on the right things? Being really like truly agile means that like everyone has to be, your culture has to be set up for disruption or change. I think it's more change than disruption because that's a very overused word. But if it's constantly disrupting, I'm not sure how you can have a really sustainable business. But, you know, it's about change and having people willing to get behind that. So
beauty of cosmetics is pretty unique in that sense, right? From like I mean, I don't buy cosmetics myself, but I think the perception I have, at least, and this, I'd love to hear your perspective on this as someone much closer and familiar, is that, you know, it's spontaneous purchases. It's a lot of try on in store. You know what I mean? I guess it's a less like practical category, and there's probably more exploration and more opportunities for a retailer to cross-sell, upsell with a customer.
I mean,
I came in for lip gloss. I left with like $250 worth of stuff, I guess is like
well, you know, it depends on the category, right?
Yeah,
so skincare is much more loyal. I would say foundation is also much more loyal. So it's category dependent on the sort of, you know, where you're looking at makeup versus skincare versus hair care too. I mean, it's all. So hair care, I would imagine, is also more loyal.
Yeah,
but
right. You keep using the same brand, and you just order more.
Exactly. Yeah. I would say makeup in terms of color cosmetics, lipsticks, tints, blushes, things like that. Eyeshadow, that's much more sort of spontaneous. I think that there is Sephora and Ulta have done a really great, all these retailers have done a really great job of like trial. So, you know, even if you purchase online, you'll get free samples, try this and that. You know, you have a loyalty program, they'll give you stuff to try. And so I think it's a consumer habit, but also the retailers really pushing it. Like, try all these different things, And TikTok, again, going back to TikTok, I mean, I can't tell you how many new beauty brands that I've purchased through TikTok, just through creators who are like pushing things that you're like, that person kind of sounds like me and loves this product. Let me try it. And so this sort of effortless trial of like the spontaneous, like, okay, well, this sounds great. Let me just try it. And it is like a little luxury because it's not like a handbag, right? So there's not a lot of contemplation because it's $25.
Great category too, because I'm sure it's like, I saw this look on TikTok and now I'm going to try and replicate it, right? And that's probably new products and styles that they haven't tested before. Coming from an agency background, I mean, I asked a pretty spicy question last night, which is like, agencies, and I think it's not particularly helpful question, but I do think it's relevant, and I'd be interested in your opinion. Obviously, you've probably learned a lot from agencies, right? And you're in-house now, and I think it's definitely a trend that we see, right? Like most of our clients are in-house agencies, and they've been at creative agencies in the past. But I think I'd be interested to hear how you think about agencies, external partners, product, like broad on this, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that agencies are, I think that they just have to change what they're focusing on. I've been brand side for 10 years now. We need agencies for various things though. For instance, twice a year we have activations, experiential activations. We can't do that. We can give you a brief to tell you exactly what we need to do, but we need an creative agency partner and production partner to bring that to life. We rely a lot on influencers and creators to be a part of our world. And these events are meant for content generation. We're a very social first, social led brand who have always been a champion of creators and influencers. So as like really a content partner. And so we rely on production agencies, creative agencies, event agencies to create that environment for us. We also work with them on a capacity where, I have an internal creative team of 40 people, but that's store design, visual merchandising, package design, copy,
really broad,
campaign, content, social, and program management. That's 40 people of like 5 disciplines. It's not enough people to do everything. And we have a lot of programs. So what we're always looking for whenever we tap into a agency partner is 2 things. One, can they think outside of this pink benefit box for us, right? Because we need, we love partners who, they don't always have to be a specialist in beauty. Sometimes they do, but depending on what we're looking for, if we want something totally out of the box, that's great. Well, and then the second thing is research. We work with a lot of research agencies to inform our briefs, inform our business decisions. I mean, luckily we have a really great leadership team that is able to think ahead. So, and that's including some of the market leaders, like the general managers of our regions and markets. So, I think that there is a need for agencies, for brands, because they can't do it all. Even if you have an in-house creative team, they can't do it all. It's impossible. You mentioned how many pieces of content Google has to create. I mean, that doesn't sound unusual to me.
Yeah.
I think that is something that is
crazy,
required.
It's a little crazy. Yeah.
It's a little crazy, but if you factor in a global brand that has a really like a massive audience, you need to continue to like fuel that hungry
feed the feeds.
Yeah.
Jake has a theory that CMOs will be the first to go in the AI world.
In my opinion, it just needs to be reinvented, right? Like it has a tenure of under 18 months at this point.
Which is really strange because to be honest, like 18 months is not enough time to actually create impact in a brand.
It isn't, right?
And not there.
No. I mean, it takes 18 months to create products, at least in the beauty side. You know what I mean? 18 to 24.
But also the general path that is followed is new CMO comes in. They can't then rubber stamp anything that was previously happening because they want to say, hey, I was brought in because something's broken, so I'm going to fix it with new things.
Yeah.
So it's going to take them a bunch of months to even figure out what's what.
Yeah.
It's going to take them even more time to figure out like who should solve those problems. And like that's maybe you're 13 months into the job, and then that gives you one cycle to like
it's not long enough to have create impact.
It's very hard to do that. So, maybe you all have stumbled upon a future formula where you have a CEO that's very understands that marketing and product innovation need to be aligned
Yeah.
to like move things forward.
And then those teams, those leadership teams, like, all my peers, we work really closely together. I think that in the 3 years I've been there, it's one of the sort of most, we are very, very much in sync, and we're constantly talking to each other and making sure that we're on the same page. Like that, I think that is also,
remote? Is it hybrid?
we're in the office 2 to 3 days a week, and then remote 2 days a week, 2 or 3 days a week, depending on the week. But it worked. I mean, when I first started, it was, I think, like 1 day a week. It
We're
was just-
trying for one, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I was at Tom Ford Beauty, I was there for 3 years. A year and a half of it was COVID, and we were pretty much remote for like a
Wow.
full year. And we were the most efficient that year. It was really incredible. I was like really proud of the team. We stayed connected. We would have weekly creative reviews, and we made them fun. We made sure that we stayed connected as humans, as creatives, and it really helped people still feel really part of the team without being physically there. We used to have themed creative reviews, so we would show up like come as like album cover art, because you had Zoom. It was really fun. Come as like a color, there's random stupid things, but those little things really helped. And I think I truly still believe in remote work,
Yeah.
but now that we're hybrid, I love seeing my team in the office.
Yeah. Not being at home, right?
I love being at
nice
home
to be-
too, but it is nice to
Yeah,
have
it's
a
nice to
break,
like-
right?
I saw Mark Cuban talking recently about the importance of events and experiential and in-person interaction.
Yeah.
Retail, obviously, as well. I'd just be interested to hear how you were thinking about events and experiential to build community, connect with your customers and, fans.
Well, this is my first time at Cannes. I spoke this morning on the creators panel, and that's why I'm here. And I've never.
I mean, everyone wants to see that panel, but
No. So it's interesting. The most memorable thing. So I've tried to go. It's impossible. The schedule here at Cannes is like really overwhelming.
It's infinitely
there
fluid.
are so many panels that you can't get to because also lines. I wanted to go and see Sport Beach, right? And there's a massive line. Like it's really overwhelming. But my favorite, most memorable experience here has been meeting a lot of new people and reconnecting with old friends.
The agency background is nice for that, right?
Yes.
You have all these people.
Yeah. But I have friends who were agency, then now they're at brands. So some of them are here. Some of them did the reverse. They were at brands, now they're at agency. So they're here. So it's just been really.
Yeah, that is a newer trend, isn't it?
Yeah.
People going from brand to agency, often to be like a CMO.
Yes.
And I'm like, it's not really a CMO, guys, but okay.
No, I mean, I always wonder what a CMO at an agency does.
They do sales. They do new business,
I see.
right?
Okay,
it's like, I think at a certain scale, it's probably a legitimate CMO, right?
Yeah,
like
totally.
a CMO at WPP probably has a budget similar to a lot of brands.
For sure.
But I do think it's primarily sales versus like a true marketing role. I don't know. Who knows? Titles have gone crazy.
Well, when I was, when I remember being at Tiffany, there was a producer who really wanted to go to the agency side because she knew that she wanted to learn things that, the skills that she didn't have being brand side. She'd only been brand side. So I think she went to agency for a couple of years and then she went back to brand. But I mean, I do think that it's important for whether you're a creative, whether you're a marketing person or an account person or strategist, that sort of cross experience is really important. I think you just learn so much from the environments. I, as a creative person, you really thrive when you're younger. I think I think that the best scenario is when you're younger, spend time in an agency, you work with multiple different brands, you learn so much how to sell.
Get to a big city.
Get to a big city.
Get to the best agency you can.
Totally.
Fill the fridge. It doesn't matter. Just like get in.
No, and then you learn how to sell an idea, right? And that, I think is a really big skill that a lot of, they don't teach you that in school. Even if you go to design school, you can go to like, RISD. Yes, you can pitch your work, but I just don't, it's not like the experience you get in an agency, you know. And then you go on the brand side, and I've said this to other people, and I remember Jacob Dashik, who is SVP of creative for La Mer. He was also my client when I was in an agency. He was at David Yurman. So David Yurman was his first, I think, client side. And I remember having lunch with him or coffee, and he said, you know, it's like going to brand is like going to business school for a creative person. And
interesting.
And I would tell you, in the last 10 years I've been brand side, I truly believe that you learn so much, you know, and you also realize that's why the clients are not ignoring you. They're constantly in meetings because
they're
things
trying
are changing.
to sell it.
They're trying to figure out what to do, you know, which, you know, they're just really, you know, brand side, there's a lot that, you know, most clients are doing. But yeah, no, you just, I think especially as a creative person, you know, you learn a certain skill, whether it's a designer or a writer, you know, you learn that craft and you do get good at that. But then in order for you to become a leader, that, you know, there's all these skill sets that you learn on the job, right? From mentors, from your managers and other people, you know, that you follow. But yeah, so I love that I've had both experiences, and it somehow I landed in a place that I just love. I mean, Benefit's been amazing. It is this wonderfully fun place that is serious about business, but serious about having fun. So I think it manifests in the way we express ourselves, and we try to. So
that's great. It's great to hear. I think I'd love to hear about, you know, you talked a little bit about, you know, junior talent. I think I worry a little bit about graduates and, you know, young adults looking to try to get into the industry and learn the craft for a number of reasons. But I think remote is part of that. I think SaaS and AI is part of that. How do you think about like finding and, you know, growing young people in the industry?
You know, I always look back, you know, I spent 6 years at Deutsch New York years ago, and I remember being really intimidated when I first got there. I was an associate creative director when I got there, but still relatively young. And it was pretty traditional at the time. Donnie Deutsch was still there, and all the creative directors were men. And, you know, it was really intimidating. And I think that I had an amazing mentor or leader, Ingrid Bernstein, who was there, and she was badass. She just had so much confidence and gave me confidence to be like, just find your voice, just who cares? I think that if you, as a young person, find good mentors to help you find your voice, find the confidence. It is because it's intimidating, you know, as a designer. And, you know, I just met with a videographer that we work with who's here for Cannes Academy, and he was invited and he was super excited. And it's just, you know, being curious, you know, finding mentors, whether they're at the place that you work or outside, I think is really helpful.
And in terms of like getting a foot in the door, right? Like, I mean, when I was pretty early in my agency career because my uncle started an agency. And so
you're lucky.
I would, well, sort of, but it's like he was very like, no nepos, you know, so I got kind of treated the worst because like everybody was mad at me because I was the founder's nephew, but also like he was like, I'm not giving you, in fact, I'm going to give you like worse treatment. So like I was like organizing job bags in like a dusty garage like 25 years ago. Okay. I was like, am I supposed to be down here?
Job
you know,
bags.
But I think it didn't matter what you started doing. I don't think I realized that in school that you have to start as like a creative or account person. You can start filling the fridge with drinks or like whatever it is, the job bags in the garage.
Yeah.
And you can sort of, you can move around horizontally. It's not super common, but it's certainly been done. Like, what do you look for in juniors? If you're going to hire someone fresh out of school, no experience, what is it that would stand out and resonate with you? Is it like a social presence? Is it something specific? Is it?
I mean, in creative, first start is just sort of a sense of design, sense of an eye.
Like a book.
If it's a book, if it's a writer, you know, whether or not that person can write a clever line or, you know, is a good writer. People who can take really complicated things and then find a simple solution. I think that has always sort of stayed with me. It's interesting. My talk this morning for Cannes was with two leaders at DNY. One of them, which I worked with at Mac. I was like the number 2 creative at Mac, and she was this woman who's a chief creator officer at DNY. And I guess a very strange new
That's
title.
yeah, right.
I think
it's very close to chief creative officer,
know,
but
well,
like
they're-
just 3 letters different,
Yes,
right?
but she's the chief creator officer, which I think it might be a very new role for a lot of agencies. And so our talk was around how leadership has helped her get to where she is. And so when I was at Mac, she was a makeup artist for like 15 years. And really skilled makeup artist, but she also killed it in the content game. So, you know, we're sitting, we would work with her
on social, right?
On social. It was Instagram at the time, but it was the #1 platform
when that
at
was
the
like
time.
new and hot filters.
Yeah. So she was making amazing individual content, and then sometimes we would bring her on to be on-air talent to do how-to videos and stuff like that. And we just loved seeing her work just from a distance, creating her own voice. She then came to me and my boss and said, I want to change. I want to really shift what I do. And so her drive and her sort of really confidence to be like, I think I can do something else. And so we made her director of social. And we gave her, you know, she didn't know what she was doing, not completely. She knew what was doing from a content creation perspective, but she didn't have any of the sort of corporate skills. But that's all stuff you can learn and teach, right? Very easily, giving her the right tools. So it was really a great story to kind of talk about how, like, you know, I saw potential in her. I knew you're not just a makeup artist. I know you could do something else. And so I think as a leader, being able to just see that spark outside of what they're currently doing, having them be able to transfer that skill set into something different to then evolve as chief creator officer, right? So
it's an amazing story because I think there's probably a lot of like beauty professionals, hairdressers, makeup artists, you know, that profession isn't seen like other arts is seen oftentimes, right? It's sort of not perceived in the same elite way as some other artists. But I think, you know, it's just an amazing story. I'm sure it's super inspiring for a lot of people out there, but
to be able to pivot, right? Change your career that way.
Sure.
It's pretty massive.
Yeah. I love that. In terms of like creative process, like obviously you know, you've got a lot of experience. I'm sure there's like certain things you did in the past when you were, you know, more focused on like ideation or concepting that you don't have time for anymore, right? But I think I talked to G-Monk recently. I don't know if you're familiar with G-Monk, but he's an amazing artist, director, working on the Neutron film at the moment, but he crosses like experiential, interactive. He was a graphic designer back in the day, but his creative process is like unplugged. Unplugged for no social media, no news, no real like reference, no inspiration from outside. It's like super focused on just like craft and like doing the work, experimentation. But like, you know, an example is the way he's using AI is using his full spectrum photography with a drone and a camera to feed into Midjourney to create other things, right? So it's, the input is not text. He's taking his original art from nature and then like messing with it, experimenting with it. And I think it's really inspiring to see that and to hear about that process of like total disconnection from like the outside world, right? And just dedication to like the craft. And so I just love to hear about anything that you think is really important to you as a creative that you've made space for amongst your schedule, which I'm sure is crazy.
It's interesting. You know, I've done this sort of head of creative or, you know, role for a little bit now, and I try my hardest to have my thumbprint on everything. And I think that, you know, you have to give your team space. But at the same time, when they are not getting to the place that you need to, I step in and give them guidance. You know, I always have some sort of reference. So benefit is interesting because there's always a sense of time and place, right? So historically, we used to do these sort of pinup style advertising. It was very, very like vintage inspired. And so we've sort of taken some elements of that. And so it is referential because it has that sort of historic part of the DNA to sort of like create something. I mean, we always try to create something new, but we have references that, you know, we always draw from. And so we are always sort of looking at different ways to do that. You know, my team does use Midjourney and AI and those things like that, but there's a lot of encouragement of utilizing it in a way that doesn't then generate the ultimate output.
Yeah.
I think it's risky.
That's
also
a hard balance.
It is a hard balance, and
You
I
know?
think because we're an LVMH owned brand, we shouldn't be putting any sort of creative work out into Midjourney, right? We do have our own proprietary AI tool that we utilize to put anything proprietary in there that to then generate, but it's not as good as Midjourney.
Sure.
So I have a lot of like skilled team members, and they're all different. Some people are really great at hand sketching, really like
That's cool.
ideating,
Yeah.
like very, very old school, but really quickly.
Yeah, love that.
So I think I've done a lot of work to kind of understand the nuances of my team members and how they get really excited about doing something and helping with their creative process. And so for me where I am, it's really important to make sure that there's the right markers in place so that they talk to me before it gets too far or get to a place where they feel like they have the right guidance to then have the confidence to like bring really great ideas. There's always constant sort of side conversations and sharing of work through social. We have a Benefit Creative team chat that we constantly share things, and we have like a social chat that's combined with marketing creative. And so there's a lot of sharing of information, but we're also trying to constantly define our voice uniquely. It's really challenging with, we just went through a rebrand with Wolf Owens, and they were a great partner. Agencies, we can't, honestly, I think they're great partners if you find the right people.
Yeah, the design space I think is pretty resilient to like no one's going to do a rebrand in house. It's just like you don't really. I mean, maybe you do, but I feel like a lot of people need help for that.
I think for a rebrand, you absolutely need an expert in branding and strategy to really help bring that to life. I think we found really great partners with Wolf Owens, and the team that we worked with was brilliant. Jess Yan, who's a creative director there, was a fantastic partner and gave us like truly like if you look at her, you go, that is not a Benefit woman, but she truly they loved the project so much, and they loved and understood our brand. And I think that that's the other thing is that you also have to have agency partners that will understand you.
Yeah.
We have had pitches where agencies will completely miss the mark and assume you're a certain brand because what they see out in the universe is what they might see, whereas we are trying to constantly evolve as a brand, and so they're not in those conversations. Some agencies get it right away, but others do not. But going back to the process, I think that, just constantly thinking. I mean, I don't know, this sounds really simple, but when I run, I think of something new.
Sure.
I write things down, like those things, like these are all simple tools, saying things out loud. So those simple things, it doesn't have to be that complicated, And I do think that clarity in terms of what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to focus on.
Simplify, right?
Yes.
Yes. Always simplify.
Yeah.
We mentioned the CMO role, and I think it's interesting to see more CEOs recognize the value of creativity and not just put the creatives at the kids' table and actually have, a strong voice in the C-suite who's a creative.
Yeah.
Right. And they see the business value in that.
Yeah.
How do you think about like your career moving forward with like that in mind?
I mean, it's interesting, I don't have a C-suite title, but I am part of the leadership team. We call ourselves the G11, and creative is embedded in everything we do. I think that what I've learned, really quickly is that it's stronger, not in isolation, right? So it's that sort of collaboration. Like creative is stronger when it's strategic, when it's informed. There are certain brands and corporations and companies that don't have that mindset, and they sort of think, okay, well, just make it look better, right? But I'm luckily at a place, and this is why I think I'm thriving in a lot of ways, because I have a platform and I have a leadership team that truly values creative, because Benefit is as a brand that is evaluated by, how it expresses itself. Like a lot of beauty brands, having that culture embedded, I think is really important. It is hard though. I have seen where creative is like, oh, you'll come in later, but it's much stronger when it can be embedded in everything. The difficulty sometimes is that when it's embedded in everything, then marketing takes the reins. Yeah. I know. It's challenging. I think that you need to have the right leadership in place to kind of foster that.
I'd love to finish with a question about legacy. which I think, you know, it's kind of odd to think about a little bit, right? But
Yeah.
if you think 20, 30 years ahead, like how would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as someone that was fun, smart, loving, and caring. A woman who had a lot of confidence in building good teams and being a good leader. I think I want to be remembered as a good person, really, ultimately. I think back on my younger days, and, you know, this is something that maybe I don't even know. I don't know if David talked about it, but, you know, as Korean Americans, we have what we call the Korean rage, which is the crage. And there
He
is a
didn't.
passion in the Korean
Yeah,
community that
yeah.
individuals, it's called the Han, that
Okay.
guides us
Yeah.
throughout our life. And I think that I've tempered that a lot. And I think that being a good person, to me, being remembered as a good person, out of all those things, all the things I said, is like ultimately the thing that I want people to remember me as.
Yeah. I talked to Xanthi at Pinterest and Danielle at Uber
Yeah.
and Jamie at Joan.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Three, I think, amazing women who are leading teams in the
Yeah.
creative space as like creatives who really care most about helping other people. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's not like I want to win a titanium. It's like
I
there's
don't really care about that.
yeah. It'd be nice. I'll take
It'd
it.
be nice, sure. Of
But
course, of course.
I think what's like heartening for me is just to see so many people with care for their team.
You know, I've come from different places where leadership was fantastic, leadership was terrible. And I've learned from both of those experiences that at the end of the day, I know how I thrive and it's not the negative, and
Yeah.
that you learn a lot from those bad experiences and you go, oh,
I don't want to be that.
I
Yeah.
never want to be
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
I know that that's not good for, you know,
Yeah.
creative people. Creative people are sensitive.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's ego involved.
Yeah.
There's, you know, you don't want to take your work personally, but you can't help it because you crafted it, of course.
Of
So,
course. Now this is a bit of a tangent, but you're giving me flashbacks to like my first porn days. Did you ever meet June Park?
no.
June is one of the most amazing creative leaders I've ever worked with. He happens to be Korean, but like I think that was really an enlightening for me about like
Yeah.
how amazing like the Korean design scene is, you know?
Yeah.
Like
I mean, it's just a very, the work ethic, you know, my parents worked really hard, and I always thank my parents for giving me that work ethic. And it's just, you know, my husband's always like, you work too hard. I'm like, I actually love working. Like, I'm a workaholic, and it
yeah.
fulfills me in a way that is really different than anything else. But it's also, now that I'm, you know, a little bit older, it's great to have that balance of working hard than, you know, just chilling in California. So
Diana, I appreciate the time.
thank you so much.
Thank you
This
for
is
coming
great.
on.
This is so fun.